12 place settings were used. I counted them twice before my spouse even spoke, so I know. Tablecloth made of white linen. The sunset in Paris is reflected in crystal flutes. A dozen chairs. Completely filled. Everyone is grinning. I didn't get any. My fingers were still gripping the brass handle as I stood motionless at the entrance to Lucille de Paris, half expecting someone to leap up and exclaim, "Oh, wait, Elise has arrived. We must include a chair." However, nobody made a move. Nobody blinked at all. Then Andrew's voice struck my ear like a stone. "You made it, darling." Warm and familiar, he placed his hand on the small of my back. Our marriage has lasted for 6 years, and for some reason, that casual contact nevertheless had an effect on me in spite of everything. Foolish. However, I remained motionless. I couldn't take my eyes off that table, with its 12 chairs and Hastings' smiles. Rebecca, her cousin, whispered behind her hand. Uncle Gerald's water glass instantly captivated him, and my mother-in-law, Margot, letting out that high-pitched, phony laugh that she employs like perfume, forceful, calculated, and intended to last. In a royal gesture, she stretched out to touch Rebecca's arm, causing her diamond bracelet to catch the light. 12 individuals. There are 12 seats, and me, standing by myself. Even though I spoke softly, my voice remained steady. "Andrew, I can't find a chair." He looked after me. For a brief moment, I saw his brow twitch before it flattened out like wet pavement. He murmured, "Must be a miscount," as though that clarified anything. It didn't. I moved on, ignoring the waiter, the champagne, and the years I spent acting like I was a member of this family. Conversation slowed down as I got closer to the table, but it quickly resumed with a forced brightness that made my skin crawl. Andrew settled into his chair, as if nothing had happened. Nobody volunteered to move in. "Wait, this is a mistake," no one said. Not even Andrew. "Oh dear," remarked Margot, getting up a little. "That smile again. There must have been a miscount." This time, tighter, managed. The employees can be so irresponsible. This time, Rebecca didn't even pretend to whisper. I assumed she was no longer attending to family matters. It landed. With a laugh, Andrew grabbed the wine. "Sorry," he said. "There has to be a miscount. Once more." The same terms, the same phony informality, the same practiced tone. For the first time, I stopped trying to justify what I saw after giving them a serious look. In actuality, this wasn't an error. The script was as follows. I wasn't written in either. This was not always the case. Or perhaps it was, but I was simply too incredibly optimistic to realize it. While organizing a wedding, I got to know Andrew. My laugh pleased him, claimed that I was elegant under pressure. We were engaged for 6 months, had chemistry, and champagne. "How novel," was the first thing Margot said to me. The groom being married by a wedding planner. When she said it, she grinned. The way a cat grins before playing with a mouse that is half dead. I assumed she would get warmer. Andrew did the same. He had declared, "They're old money. Time is necessary." I gave them 6 years, half a decade of painstaking family gatherings, immaculate Christmas meals, matching pajamas, country home rentals, carefully chosen floral arrangements, and presents I doubted they would ever remember to open. Even the personalized cocktail napkins were part of my meticulous planning. Didn't find a seat yet. Not for Christmas. Not on birthdays. Not even tonight, when I traveled halfway across the world to be with them in Paris. That chair that's missing? It wasn't an error. The announcement was the thing. There was a snap, but not the typical one. "Don't be angry. Don't cry." Nothing but silence. Similar to a door that locks from the inside. I put a gentle hand on Andrew's shoulder. I said, "Enjoy your family dinner. I'll take care of myself." Margot blinked. Gerald moved around in his chair. Rebecca even ceased whispering. Then, suddenly, there was relief. When someone receives what they came for without having to explicitly ask for it, there's a collective exhale. They desired my departure. They got exactly what they wanted from me. With my back straight and my heels clicking like punctuation on the patio, I left. Conversation resumed behind me. It even sounded lighter when people laughed. In the elevator, I refrained from crying. I also didn't cry in the motel. Not immediately. I wondered how in the world I got here as I sat on the edge of the bed and gazed out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the brightness of Paris. After 6 years. Not a chair. No location. And I had no idea how far the rot had spread. Then the screen on my laptop came to life. Staring back at me was the spreadsheet I had opened the previous evening. Tidy columns, transaction records, 10 years of family investments, my funds, my lines of credit, my company, supporting their way of life. If the individuals who claimed to be your family treated you like a stranger and then made an effort to completely erase you, how would you respond? What if the missing chair was only the first step? That night, I didn't sleep. I've had worse nights, not because I couldn't. Evenings following funerals. Silences followed by nights. There were evenings when Andrew claimed it was just a client dinner, when he returned home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. This one, however, was unique. Standing in the center of a room that had been subtly altered while I was not looking was how this one felt. Nothing was where I left it, but everything was still there. With my hair flat and makeup smudged, I sat on the hotel bed in Paris, looking at my open laptop while the city shone below. The spreadsheet blinked. Transaction data on line after line. Clean, for the most part, until you were aware of what to seek. The Hastings family owned a trust that was extremely well managed and old money. I had eyes, but I was never permitted to interfere with it. Additionally, I was able to access my own business accounts, which, to my amazement, had been gradually supplying theirs. Andrew consistently dismissed it as consolidation or long-term equity blending, terms used by wealthy individuals to take from those who are close enough to them to be unaware of it. However, I took note. I was now completely awake. There was no hiding the flash disk. That's where the humor lies. It was simply there, like a misplaced receipt, in Andrew's leather travel case. If I hadn't knocked over his razor when he was reaching for toothpaste, I wouldn't have even seen it. Silver. Not marked .generic. It's the kind of thing you overlook until you're dropped from a dinner table on a different continent. At which point, everything you've forgotten becomes a message. I plugged it into my laptop after staring at it for a whole minute. One folder was present. Legacy. I paused. After that, I opened it. It contained spreadsheets, contracts, and PDFs that were all date-labeled. Some are new, some are old. All of them were connected to Hastings Holdings, which, in actuality, didn't even bear my name. Not in a legal sense. I randomly selected one file. A contract was in place. Hastings, Andrew Hastings, Margot Brennan, Olivia. My heart then stopped. Because Olivia Brennan wasn't just any old financial partner or lawyer. Andrew's ex was her. He dated that person before me. Margot's beloved. I was never permitted to inquire about that one, since it wasn't relevant. Pertinent. Correct. I opened other files. Olivia's name appeared once more, and once more. In records dating back more than 2 years. Strategic alliances, reallocations of properties, gatherings for private investments, even email copies. Then I discovered it. 6 months ago, an internal message was issued. Olivia Brennan will be considered for executive co-chair of Hastings Holdings per board consensus upon the termination of the current marital contract with Elise Hastings. Pact for marriage. As if we were selling our marriage like any other investment. It was a whole minute before I breathed. Everything now made sense. Last Thanksgiving, Margot accidentally reserved the wrong room for me. The birthday celebration where Andrew arrived 3 hours late, with a bag full of excuses and lipstick on his collar. The sudden interest in protecting family assets under the cover of prenuptial restructuring. The chair comes next. Remembered. Taken out. They weren't only leaving me out. I was being replaced by them, alongside her. I shut down the laptop and sat for a while in the dark. You would expect that betrayal would feel like anger or flames. It doesn't. It's chilly. As if you were drowning and a glass of water had been tossed in your face. I stopped feeling like the wife who was denied a seat during that silence. I began to feel like the hurricane that nobody had anticipated. I left the hotel the following morning. When I left, Andrew wasn't even conscious. No note was left by me. Didn't shut a door. I left the scarf draped over the back of the chair, but I didn't even take it. I left as if I had just gotten coffee. I had already boarded a train to Zurich when he discovered I was gone. What they overlooked is this: I own my own business, not a wedding blog or flower shop. Asset security for international clients is the focus of this logistics and operations consulting firm. I help people maintain the cleanliness and impenetrability of their empires. They also believed that I wouldn't recognize a hostile takeover in my own wedding. Adorable. I requested a favor. Only one. A Swiss lawyer named Luca owed me a lot of money. We met over croissants and espresso in a backroom law office with a quiet receptionist and no signs. The flash disk was slid across the table by me. Explain the depth of this. With a raised eyebrow, he plugged it in and began to read. He looked up 15 minutes later. I could see the change in his eyes, but his voice remained neutral. He stated, "This wasn't just personal. You were being set up by them, transferring your possessions in silence. Bad real estate bets are being fronted with your credit. They would have had you pay for Margot's charity scam if they had persuaded you to sign 2 more paperwork. Fraud involving charities. Jesus. Gala dinners, all of them." Her foundation received all of the donations. Faux LLCs were used to funnel half of them into offshore accounts. Under my name. And the story of the attractive wife defrauding wealthy contributors behind her husband's back would have been widely reported by the media. It went beyond simple treachery. It was a plan. All they needed was a headline, since they had already constructed the story in which I was the antagonist. However, I refused to give them one. I was asked what I wanted to do by Luca. Set it on fire? He uttered those words. Disclose them? I gave a headshake. It's too loud. Too disorganized. No, I preferred something more subdued, something colder, something long-lasting. The stillness was something I wanted them to accept. The disintegration that would result from pressure rather than news stories. At a time, one thread. And I was already aware of where to begin. Silence in a betrayal like this has a very particular quality. It isn't dramatic. There is no shouting or slamming of doors. It's surgical, the type of quiet you employ after you've finished describing something. Once you've given everyone a chance, you come to the realization that they never considered you to be a part of the strategy. I had moved past my grief. I was planning. Andrew had yet to call from New York. No, where are you? Let's talk. No. Not even a sloppy text message feigning concern. Nothing but quiet. It was as like he had conveniently removed me from his agenda, just as he had removed my seat at that dinner table. Excellent. It allowed me room to move. Ernest Hallberg was the man I met on my second day back. Ernest, a traditional industrialist, with a fearsome poker face and a strong dislike of scandal, was the biggest outside investor in Hastings Holdings. We had previously met at a charity auction I organized for Margot 2 years prior. He appreciated that I didn't talk a lot. Claimed that the majority of the women there sounded like they were pitching themselves, not ideas. Charming man. He still valued money and performance, though. He was my finest angle, I reasoned. Even if the board loves Margot, Ernest adored comes back. I requested 15 minutes over the phone at his office. His helper hesitated. Elise Hastings? Yes. I don't think he's... Calmly, I said. Tell him I have something involving Hastings Holdings and criminal exposure. He'll be interested in hearing it. Quiet. Next, tomorrow, you have 20 minutes. Bring supporting documentation. Excellent. We met at his downtown corner office. Everything is mahogany. Chairs made of leather were so rigid that they squeaked when you breathed. I wasted no time. On his desk, I slid the flash drive. I said, I'm not here to make any requests. I'm here because if you don't take immediate action, your portfolio is going to collapse. At first, he didn't touch the drive. Is this a personal grudge of some sort? He inquired. I gave a shrug. It was. Then I discovered proof of fraud. It's business now. He was interested in that. I guided him through it in a quiet and effective manner. Shell games for real estate. Equity that was not true. Fake receipts for donations. What's the kicker? Margot, who was still legally married to Andrew, transferred her own money under Olivia's name under a dormant nonprofit. Ernest reclined. And with all of this, where are you? He inquired. I responded. About 2 steps ahead. And sending everything to the IRS is just a phone call away. He grinned. Only a bit. What are you asking me to do? Nothing is visible to the public. Not quite yet. However, I would like you to convene a board meeting, not with Andrew, with the actual participants, those who write the checks. What if I don't? Calm and slow, I stood. Then a story is sent to the media. Additionally, the feds receive a gift bag. When I left, he didn't stop me, indicating that the message had been received. Andrew gave me a call the following day. It's been more than a week. Where in hell have you been, Jesus Elise? Are you aware of what's happening? I didn't respond. He continued. The accounts of the investors were frozen by Halberg, said that he was given a credible warning. Margot is furious. The board is in a panic. Olivia has threatened to file a lawsuit. What did you do? I sipped my coffee. You're genuinely curious? Indeed. He let out a bark. I was honest. He remained silent for a moment. Then, you're attempting to ruin us. No, I replied with a smile. You've already done it. All I'm doing is ensuring that the debris falls in the proper direction. Under his breath, he swore. I had faith in you, he growled. In fact, I laughed. No, Andrew. You put up with me. There is a distinction. Click. After that, I blocked his number. I avoided going nuclear. Not quite yet. I devoted 7 days to Ernest, and I saw everything come together brilliantly during that week. 2 charity activities were canceled by Margot. Conflict scheduling. 3 investment companies no longer had Olivia's name on them. Resigned. When Andrew and his lawyer arrived at a restaurant, they were photographed sobbing. That one got viral. What about the board? All of a sudden, there was silence. That's precisely what I desired. I had no desire for vengeance. Leverage was my goal. I had it now. My lawyer sent me a mail one afternoon. It came from the board of Hastings Holdings. Regarding Elise Hastings' ongoing participation in all associated holdings, we are asking for a private conversation. We think that everyone will benefit from a resolution. Interpretation, we're afraid. We would like this to end quietly. How much does it cost? I rewrote one sentence. Give me what you took first. I had an in-person meeting with them. My offices, not theirs. No helpers, no husbands. No, Margot. Only 5 suit-wearing men who had once grinned at me as if I were a kid talking on the phone. Right now? They bided their time until I spoke. I turned over 3 settlement agreements, a rewritten equity agreement, and legal revisions. They didn't even bat an eye, and I was in an instant. Seat on the board, complete financial evaluation. Margot retired sooner rather than later. Olivia wrote the family name on all of the documents. All proxy authority was taken away from Andrew. And me? I turned into the one thing they didn't anticipate. Essential. I didn't shake hands when I exited the meeting. I didn't require one. Because I could already tell by the expression in their eyes, the wrong woman was underestimated. They were now forced to show her respect. I spotted him while strolling through my building's atrium. Andrew. He stood there as if he had always been there, as if he had not disappeared when things became difficult. The same fitted coat. I got him the same watch on our 3rd anniversary. He had the same beseeching expression, but it didn't work this time. I was done trying to be understood now. Can we have a conversation? He inquired. Not even a complete statement. Not even hi or I'm sorry. Only that one stale request. I stopped. For myself? Not for him. Just long enough to check for any feelings. I didn't. You have 3 minutes, I said. In a peaceful side room with polished wood and glass walls separating us, we sat opposite one another. He appeared smaller than I had recalled, as if he had finally noticed the cliff's edge and understood he was on sand. Elise, he began. I was mistaken. I gently nodded once. Indeed, you were. I ought to have paid attention. I ought to have kept you safe. I interrupted him and remarked, You didn't forget a chair. You decided to do something. It wasn't a coincidence. That was a decision. He cast his gaze downward. There was a long pause. He remarked, I had no idea what Margot and Olivia were up to. I had no idea it had progressed that far. I arched an eyebrow. The contracts were signed by you. I didn't read all of... You did. I leaned closer. You have read them. You were aware. You simply assumed that I would never see them. He winced, as if I had given him a slap. The problem is that I loved him once. Really, not the kind found in fairy tales. The tough kind. The sort where you see the person beneath the ego, the neglect, and the small lies, and you choose to ignore them. However, I no longer felt affection for the man in front of me. The version I hoped he would develop into was one I adored. Furthermore, that version never appeared. His eyes were hazy but still reaching when he eventually looked up. I want to make this right. I didn't laugh aloud. Simply crisp. Andrew, this isn't a faucet. You are not allowed to switch the pressure on and off as you see fit. He had a desperate expression. The mask was breaking. I am capable of changing. No, I responded as I got to my feet. You can't. Not to mention, I don't want you to. I walked over to the door. Then came his voice. Please, Elise. I remain your spouse. I didn't turn around, but I did halt. You were my spouse. You then turned into a liability for me. Right now? All you are is the echo that I no longer pay attention to. The door was not slammed by me. Every step I took was a sentence I didn't have to speak as I left, my heels soft on the tile. And after being submerged for months, it felt like breathing for the first time when I emerged into the light and returned to my life. No ring. Not guilty. There is no need for an explanation. The sound of a future free of a man who needs me little and pure air. He made another attempt that evening. Emails. A voicemail. I didn't open a delivery of flowers. At one time, he even appeared outside my apartment complex, conversing with the doorman as though we were still working things out. I didn't respond, because quiet has a very particular power. The type that says, I was within your reach. You went crazy. It won't be returned to you. I sent the final divorce documents to my lawyer a few days later. Tidy. Not very dramatic, not contested. The board had already decided on the conditions of the settlement. My equity was not touched by Andrew. He refused to leave with a payout. The company's upcoming annual report will not even mention him. He put his signature on it. Finally, because even he understood in his heart that there was nothing more to dispute. Retaliation is often associated with flames, large-scale events, explosions, and yelling battles in court. However, what is the reality? The door to true retaliation is locked. A blocked number, an empty chair, a lady who has learned to choose herself, so she no longer recoils when she isn't picked. I didn't make any posts. My status was not updated, kept the world in the dark. However, I got a new workstation for myself. Not larger, not as fancy. Simply put, distinctive, firm, walnut, heavy. And I put a single frame on it with a quote I'd never forgotten from a bookstore. To keep others warm, you don't have to burn yourself alive. I once believed that remaining silent meant giving up. I realize now that it's the last move, because my loudest action to date was dismissed without having to give an explanation. Her playground was the gala. Margot Hastings in her prime. That laugh, diamonds large enough to signal airplanes, and hair sculpted into something rigid and menacing. The one that sounds like it's rehearsed every morning before breakfast in front of the mirror. There were too many cameras, a silent auction, and black tie at the annual Hastings Foundation Gala. The one that, like clockwork, I helped plan each year. As long as I didn't distract from the family's image and wore neutral attire, I was always allowed to go. This year, the board extended an invitation to me. As Andrew's wife, no, not as the disappointment of Margot. Only Elise, chairwoman. Invest. Majority that is silent. People noticed, even if no one said it out. I was dressed in crimson. Not red like a fire engine. Not a cheap red. A quiet power red that burns slowly and is drenched in wine. Not the kind of crimson that begs for authority. You can't remove me, is the kind of thing. The documents are previously signed by me. Across the room, Margot caught sight of me. Her smile narrowed significantly, as if her Spanx were severing her blood flow. With a champagne flute in her hand that she had not yet touched, she walked over. Her name was Elise. It's nice to see you. I see. Alone? She spoke in a honeyed, barbed wire voice. I gave one nod. This is always preferable to being in the wrong company. She disregarded that. She responded, "You've done." Well, as if the words were painful. What a rise. Keeping everything together without Andrew must be quite taxing. It was there, the public scoff, a small swipe, enough to make the women in her circle snicker, just enough to make the photographers act as though they're not paying attention. Perhaps the old Elise laughed courteously, could have been deflected. It may have provided an explanation. No, Elise. I didn't respond. I simply allowed the silence to linger between us like a field of fog. She made another attempt. Some members of the board are worried, you know. Whispers are heard, rumors, that maybe this rapid and significant transformation isn't sustainable. I looked her in the eyes. Dead steady, I said. Funny. Regarding women voting, they stated precisely that. Nevertheless, here we are. She refrained from laughing. Nobody did. Then I silently took an envelope out of my handbag and gave it to her. Here is the most recent audit from the foundation you used to manage. Since you brought it up, I cleaned it myself. She grasped it with a slightly shaking hand. What is this? I said. Line by line breakdown. Everywhere the funds did not go. Every name it went through. At the bottom are all the signatures. You own some of them. I didn't speak louder. I kept my gaze fixed on you. The truth, cut like a scalpel, I answered. I would resign if I were you. Silently, with grace. Prior to being asked to speak in court by the IRS, rather than at a podium, she turned pale. I'm not sure what you believe you're doing. I leaned closer. I breathed on her shoulder just enough for her to feel it. I said, I'm not thinking. I'm recalling. Everything. I turned and left after that. I left before the remarks began. Stayed away from the press pictures, the toasts, and the courteous applause when the old names were acknowledged for work they hadn't done. There was nothing left for me to prove. The air was clean but frigid outside. As if it owed me clarity, I let out a breath into the darkness. And I felt light for the first time in years. Not because I had prevailed. However, I had given up on waiting for them to give me room. I had accepted it. Margot resigned to focus on personal matters, she said a month later. Olivia completely vanished from the corporate world. Andrew? He tried to start a cryptocurrency brand after relocating to Miami, as far as I know. It failed. No legal action. Not a single tabloid. Not a single headline. Simply the silent departure of those who had based their entire existence on the belief that I wouldn't be aware of their actions behind my back. And me? I returned to my job, constructed objects, kept my clients safe, went to Kyoto for a weekend without a phone and without any obligations. And occasionally, I would receive an email from a woman I didn't even know, a relative, or an old coworker saying, I heard your actions. Thank you. You also gave me the confidence to walk. Power is perceived as being noisy, that it resides in corporate titles, stock options, and boardrooms. However, actual power? Being able to enter a room full of individuals who have attempted to delete you is true power, and without having to speak a word, since your life speaks for itself.